We need to save our fantasy football teams. Whether you're 0-3, you're 1-2, maybe you have a winning record, but you're going to want to know what to do with these guys that are the hottest topics in fantasy football right now. Brian Thomas Jr. continues to be one of the most talked about wide receivers in fantasy football right now, because how much are we going to hold on to Brian Thomas Jr., somebody that we were very confident was going to bounce back at some point, and another week goes by and there is no bounce back for Brian Thomas Jr. How confident are we that somebody who's averaging 8.5 points per game, that was taken in the top 12 of fantasy football wide receivers this year, is going to bounce back? I'm not so sure. 26% to almost 27% target share. So it's not really the issue for Brian Thomas Jr. Fact of the matter is, there are multiple factors at play with Brian Thomas Jr. here. Number one, he doesn't necessarily look like himself. He's not bringing in passes that he normally would. He's not converting a high percentage of his targets either. So he had 2 receptions on 6 targets in week 3, 4 receptions on 12 targets in week 2, 1 reception on 7 targets in week 1. I mean, you can do the math there. He is not bringing in the targets he's getting. And so part of that is going to be Brian Thomas Jr.'s fault. The other part of that is going to be Trevor Lawrence's fault, though. And let me tell you, Trevor Lawrence, this dude, for being the next Andrew Luck, Peyton Manning, whatever, I just don't see it. I just, at this point, I just don't see it with Trevor Lawrence. He just looks mid, unfortunately. And the Jaguars, even though they did get a win over the Houston Texans, who also look mid, by the way, I'm not seeing it with Trevor Lawrence. You're not really seeing any receivers there in Jacksonville produce yet. Travis Hunter is playing less on offense and more on defense now, so you've seen him kind of take a step back. The one guy that you could maybe point to and be like, oh, he's kind of producing, is Parker Washington, actually. He had 12 points in week 2, 7 points, because he had 11 targets in week 3 against Houston. It's just not good for Brian Thomas. And again, we were very confident that he was going to bounce back. I still say he probably will bounce back eventually, and you're still going to see some of those highs from Brian Thomas Jr. just because of the type of receiver he is. I'm going to say at this point you have to hold him, because I think he has more upside than anybody else in that range. It's too late to sell him. We said to buy him. He did not go up in value, so that was an incorrect take.
It was total oversight on our part, honestly. The Shane Waldron being the OC for Jacksonville and the passing game coordinator there, we've seen this in multiple offenses at this point historically. There is a direct correlation between Shane Waldron's involvement in an offense and the lack of consistent production of the top options in those respective offenses. And Brian Thomas Jr. is suffering because of it. We can't even talk about Travis Hunter at this point anymore because he's essentially irrelevant. He is unstartable. So it's bad. I'm on the same page as you, as in like he's a hold until he can maybe string together a couple of games of high production or at least respectable production, and then maybe you get some optimistic people in your league, and then you can offload at that point.
Yeah, I mean,
but I don't think at this point you're really going to be looking at consistent production for the rest of the season for BTJ unless Shane Waldron just decides to turn into some genius. And clearly, this is not the Liam Cohen offense of
not what we expected at all
of Tampa Bay. So
no, it's not.
Yeah,
I think you have to hold again. People are moving him lower than what I'm moving him. I'm moving him down to like the wide receiver 15 through 18 range. Most people are going as far as moving him past wide receiver 20. I think at that point, I think you have to hold. He's still going to get a better target share than those guys, and he still is going to have higher touchdown upside than some of those guys as well. And so my verdict with Brian Thomas Jr. is hold. I just like you, I have teams where I have Brian Thomas Jr., and I selected him at the 1-2 turn, and it doesn't look good right now. But I do think if you were going to sell, you probably had to do it early. If you can still sell at a price where you can get a Garrett Wilson, a Rome Odunze, a Jackson Smith-Njigba, an A.J. Brown, a Drake London, I would do that. I would be willing to sell for that price. I just don't know if it's happening. So explore those offers, but if not, I'm holding Brian Thomas Jr.
So next guy that we're going to have here is Trey Benson. Obviously, we mentioned him on the playbook video where if you are in a shallower format or he is available on waivers, you have to spend your entire budget on him. In most leagues, he was being drafted in the top 10 to 12 rounds as a handcuff and an insurance play to James Conner in case he went down and missed some time. Well, it's been announced that James Conner is going to miss the entire season. That ankle injury was pretty ugly. And with Benson now, it basically is a conversation of, do you want to buy low on Trey Benson before he produces at a higher level or is projected to produce at a higher level? Or do you want to sell high on a guy that you expect to disappoint and not produce at the level that James Conner did earlier this season and last year? Or do you just kind of ride it out with Benson? Benson, we do neither. And for me, here, let me just tell you where I have Benson in my rankings, because I think this will kind of clear things up. Where I had James Conner, which was in the mid to low end running back 2 range, is right where I have Trey Benson. At this point, I'm being aggressive, and I have Trey Benson rest of season ranked over Chase Brown. I think that tells you what my opinion of Trey Benson is. I think that Trey Benson is a soft buy right now. I would be willing to bet on Trey Benson getting the bulk of the carries and opportunities there. I do not think this is going to be a committee-style backfield. I think we've seen enough of DeMarcado where he's going to be kind of that third down back, get a couple of passing opportunities. But even you saw yesterday in that game with the Cardinals, he got his opportunities, and they were just not nearly as good as what Trey Benson was getting. All goal line carries went to Trey Benson. Early downs, Benson had 29 to DeMarcado's 1. All plays, 39 to Benson's 39 to DeMarcado's 7. I think you're going to see a bell cow-esque running back in Trey Benson as opposed to the split that was between Connor and Benson to start the year, because, again, DeMarcado is not going to be what Benson was as a secondary running back. So I'm pretty high on Benson rest of the season. I'm kind of calling my shot at this point, and I want to know what you think. What are you doing with him?
I would buy Benson right now. Yeah. Benson expert consensus right now. If you can flip Chase Brown for Trey Benson, like Nathan said, I would 100% do that. And again, we're going to get crap for Chase Brown all the time because people drafted him in the second and we have take log. The fact of the matter is Chase Brown wasn't looking good with Burrow, and without Burrow, he's going to look even worse.
Yeah.
With Quinshon, Chase Brown, with Trey Benson, I would flip. I would flip Chase Brown for Trey Benson. Guys like Travion Henderson, I think Travion's kind of a hold, so I'd probably hold there. Jordan Mason, I think you can make the argument. Cam Skattebo, I think you can make the argument, but I've got all those guys the same tier. Honestly, that's a nice little pocket right there of running backs that I really like in fantasy football. Quinshon Judkins, Trey Benson, Travion Henderson, Jordan Mason, and Cam Skattebo, all kind of cheap guys that can perform at a running back one level week over week. And I want to talk about the next guy here with Quinshon Judkins. Congratulations, by the way. Very, very good.
Thank you.
That is far from the worst pick in the Flock League, which is it's just so funny. We have played 3 weeks now. And
it does make me laugh. Some people are coming back and they're like, regardless of what happens with Judkins, you made the wrong pick. It was a bad pick. And I'm like, that's right. Travis Hunter was the right pick in the 5th round, and look where you're at now.
Right.
This is so much different than Dynasty, where it's like, yeah, you take the value at ADP. If you have the balls enough to take your shot, then take your freaking shot. And if you hit, then you were right.
So you're saying the number one takeaway from this is that you have balls. That's what you're saying.
Yes.
Okay, cool.
Yes. Allegedly, people were alleging that I didn't. And I'm just saying,
I mean, the proof's in the pudding now. With Judkins, rest of season, he's ranked around guys like Javonte Williams, Travis Etienne, Chuba Hubbard, Chase Brown, Trey Benson, Travion Henderson. I still think his upside's a little bit higher than this, to be honest with you. Because when you're looking at the opportunity share for Judkins in week 3, I mean, this dude, it was really his second game in the NFL. And they gave him 18 rushing attempts against the top 3 defense in the NFL, Green Bay Packers. The best defense in the NFL right now is Cleveland Browns, by the way.
That is the sexiest thing I've ever seen.
They gave him 18 rushing attempts. They gave Jerome Ford 0, and they gave Dylan Sampson 1. Now, it's pretty clear how they're using these guys, because Jerome Ford did still get 24 snaps here. And it was because he was on the field for third downs a lot. Yep. And also, so either 2-minute drill, it was Jerome Ford, third downs, it was Jerome Ford. And you saw that kind of play out in his target share, 4 targets, 4 receptions. And you saw that kind of bring Quinshon Judkins' ceiling down, in my opinion, a little bit, and only having 1 target and 1 reception there. I do think they're going to use, again, we've seen the Cleveland Browns historically use backs just like this, where they have a dedicated receiving back, and I think that's what Jerome Ford is for Quinshon. But it doesn't matter, because, sometimes you have a receiving back that gets 5 to 10 carries a game. The receiving back in this offense will get no carries. He's literally going to be on the field for passing downs, and then every carry is going to go to Quinshon Judkins. And you shouldn't be surprised, because Quinshon went in the 2nd round of the NFL draft. And the Browns were so high on him that he's still under NFL investigation, and they're like, you get out there and you have 18 carries today. You do it. And it's the Browns. We shouldn't be surprised. This is the team that paid Deshaun Watson more money than I've ever seen, traded more capital than I've ever seen for a quarterback, and Deshaun Watson was in legal trouble. I mean, it doesn't matter. The team investment with a guy that's taken in the 2nd round, some teams screw around with it. Some teams, like the Patriots, are like, I'm going to take this awesome running back like Travion Henderson, and I'm not going to play him at first, even though Travion looks great in my opinion. The Browns don't do that. The Browns are like, we picked you to play you. Play. And Judkins looks good doing it. I think he's a soft buy right now. I would even just say buy. Let's just go buy. I think by the end of the year, he could be ranked ahead of guys like Breece Hall, Travis Etienne, Kenneth Walker, Chuba Hubbard, maybe even Alvin Kamara and Ashton Genty. Like, he could be ranked above Genty at this point, and I wouldn't be like, you're stupid for that.
Yeah,
he looks better than Genty does so far. He looks more NFL ready right now. He's more efficient. Yeah. He's got a better offensive line, which isn't saying much, but I would say soft buy.
Yeah, and I do want to address the elephant in the room here before my verdict as well, because there is always going to be the NFL investigation and the potential risk of him being suspended midseason, that people are always going to short him because of that. And I will say the last time that we saw that happen was Zeke Elliott quite a while ago. What we've seen with a lot of these legal issues is you usually have about a 1-year delay before that happens. The following year, Addison and Rashee Rice got suspended. Alvin Kamara got suspended. So if you're going based off of just recency with similar situations, you're looking at Judkins potentially missing a little bit of time at the beginning of next season. That's probably what I would bet on. I'm not going to deny, again, all jokes aside and all victory lapping aside, I can't deny that there obviously is a risk that Judkins is doing really well for the next month or two, and then all of a sudden, surprise, surprise, NFL drops a 2 or 3 game suspension for Quinshon.
It's possible.
And that could absolutely screw us for sure. And honestly, that's part of why we're being a little bit conservative, just aside from needing to see it more and more with his opportunity and consistency. But we're not moving him up to a top 12 running back status right now.
Yeah.
We have to see it a little bit more, and there is always going to be that question. So Ricky Pearsall, honestly, probably one of the most polarizing assets in fantasy football right now, because you can't deny the production that has existed for him in the first 3 weeks of the year for San Fran. But again, this is a 3-week stretch for San Fran where they've had nobody. Kittle was in the first half of the game against Seattle. There's been no Ayuk. Jennings was in the first couple of games. He had a big game in week 2. He was out against Arizona in week 3. Pearsall has scored 14, 9, and 19 points with 7, 6, and 11 targets. And honestly, I'm going to have to figure this out while we talk about it, because
you want me to go?
Kittle's coming back at some point. Ayuk is coming back. CMC is playing at a high level, and then Jennings will be back. The more I think about it, you almost have to throw all this opportunity aside once all those guys come back, because you're going to see more splits between every single one of these assets in this offense. And I would assume you probably just want to give the benefit of the doubt to Kittle primarily, and then probably Ayuk, and then Pearsall.
I mean, I would actually rather give the benefit of the doubt to the guy who stayed healthy, because in my opinion, I think sometimes what we do is we're like, all of these guys are good, but they're coming back from injury, and so we short them for it. And the guys that come back from injury aren't at full strength, and the guy who has the established role, it continues to produce. But
is he going to remain consistent at this level when they're back?
I mean,
with all that
he hasn't necessarily been consistent at any level so far. It's 14, 9, and 19 points. He's been kind of all over the place.
I don't think I'd go any higher than hold because of that.
He still doesn't have a touchdown.
I wouldn't say buy.
Look, here's the thing. Last week, I said he was a buy. He went up in value. I would say hold buy again. And the reason I think hold buy is because I think there's a decent chance that people move him up their rankings, and that you have, a hold situation where you probably can't buy him because he's going to be too expensive. But if there are still people, in my opinion, I mean, this is somebody that I was considering trading for Ricky Pearsall last week. I was this close to doing a Ricky Pearsall trade last week in the Flock League. Almost acquired him.
Pearsall for who?
Well, it's a long story.
Oh.
So for Pearsall, I almost got James Conner in that deal too. So I'm very sad for James Conner, but that would have
Kyron for Conner.
It would have been something like that. Yeah. And so with Ricky, I mean, I was buying Ricky last week, and I would say still hold/buy hybrid here, depending on how people value him. I think if people are still going to say, yeah, Ricky Pearsall, who's the wide receiver 15, I will add through the first 3 weeks of the season, he's not going to continue this because Ayuk, wide receivers coming off an ACL don't always come back and just kill it. They don't. And so Ayuk is coming back from an injury. Kittle is going to be coming back from a hamstring injury, which is the risk of re-injury in that particular scenario is very high, by the way. And you have Ricky Pearsall getting his minimum is 6-7 targets a game, but then 11 targets against Arizona. And this is a team where I think the 49ers, while they're still fine, I think they are going to find themselves in shootouts more than they have in the past, because I don't think their defense is as dominant. I don't think as a team they are. You also talk about Brock Purdy coming back. That's a positive for Ricky Pearsall at this point. regardless, I like to be careful with situations like this where we have a player that's playing well, similar to Emeka Egbuka, who is playing well, and now we don't have Mike Evans, we got Chris Godwin coming back. But with as well as Emeka Egbuka looks on the field, I can't tell you to sell Egbuka because he looks the part. And Ricky Pearsall, in my opinion, when you're getting 11 targets and catching 8 of them for 117 yards, I mean, I think when you're watching him, he looks the part. And I just don't trust injured guys to come in and displace that after he's had such a strong start to a season, when you also consider that at the end of last year, he had started to pick up as well. And so what it looks like to me is a continuation of what we saw. And do I think IU can come back and be relevant? I do, but I also think that Ricky Pearsall is going to continue to be a focal point from the passing perspective of this offense. And so I'm going to say hold/buy. I'm going to kind of stand my ground. Obviously more of a hold for me. I think people are going to move him up quite a bit this week, but with Ricky Pearsall, I mean, I just don't want to say, sell him because these guys are coming back, because I think that's honestly can be a little bit of an oversight. I don't know if you have anything to add to that, but
yeah, no, I would say hold, because I don't want to put all my stock into these guys coming back and completely taking away from Pearsall and him being a non-factor. I don't believe that. That's why I don't have him as a sell. I moved him up my rankings, actually. He's in the same tier as Pickens, Jamo, Olave, Higgins, Terry, Devonta Smith, DK Metcalf. That's one big tier for me. And I prefer Pearsall over Terry and Devonta Smith, because both of those guys have competition as well. And they have really, really low floors. So realistically, rest of the season, once those other guys are back, you're probably looking at the same floor as those guys, but I don't think he's going to be a non-factor at all. So that's why I would hold him.
You can see examples of trades that people are making and also see our full rest of season rankings and use the My Teams tool for free over on the site. I got the link down below. Create a free account with code DOMAIN. You can access some of these free tools to help you and see where your team ranks so far this fantasy football season. If you're in trouble and you want Nathan and I's opinion on your team and some moves that you should make, we can do that for you. We've got team reviews available, so I got a link down there below for that as well. But we'd love to take a look at your team and give you a second opinion on maybe what you should do with some of these guys. Cam Skattebo, 3 letters, 1 word, B-U-Y. Bye. I mean, this is the same Cam Skattebo that on Sunday night against the Kansas City defense averaged 6 yards per carry. 6 against Kansas City.
He looks so good, too.
Guys, I mean,
he's the Tasmanian devil.
He is the Tasmanian devil, dude. And 10 carries for 60 yards. He ended up having a touchdown because he had a long run. The fact of the matter is, this dude is a psycho. First of all, he's a certified psycho.
Why did this guy not go day 2? I will never understand.
I mean, he's also just like completely reckless as well. Every time he gets the ball, his head is straight down into the defender. Like he's gonna break.
Then he gets up and he's like,
he's got the strongest neck I think I've ever seen.
He does like the little tick.
but in this game where the Giants were continually trying to get back into it, 8 targets, 6 receptions for 61 yards. This is very, very similar from an analytics standpoint to Amarian Hampton. Had 70 rushing yards, but had 6 receptions for 59 yards. And so, again, very similar breakouts for Cam Skattebo and Amarian Hampton. And the fact of the matter is, Cam Skattebo brings a level of playmaking ability that I do not think you have when Tyrone Tracy's on the field. Not to mention you have the Tyrone Tracy injury. Even if it is short term, I think it is no secret if you watch that game, if you are watching the tape, that Cam Skattebo is an electric football player that is a difference maker in the NFL. And usually what you see when a rookie starts to come into a role and make a difference that way is they start to get more snaps and more opportunity. And Cam Skattebo already has, in his first 2 games with above 50% snap share, he's never even gone above 60 yet, 14 and 24 points. This dude is an easy way for the New York Giants to get some offense going every single game. And regardless of what you think about Tracy, Skattebo looks better. He just does. He's a good NFL player. I think the number one risk with Skattebo is going to be if he does get injured or not, because he does play so recklessly, and because he has a history of not even reckless play injury, but I think he had a hamstring thing that lingered.
Hamstring that lingered through his last season in college that carried over through this offseason with the Giants.
Regardless, I don't care. Let's look at the rest of season ranking. Let's look at rest of season rankings. Let's do expert average here to kind of show you where he's ranked right now. I mean, he's been moved up. He's been moved up this week, but you still got him around guys like Jordan Mason. He is ranked next to Tony Pollard.
Here's the case for Cam Skattebo that I don't think I will understand unless we see it, and I'll just have to come back and say that I was wrong. Why are some people expecting this to just be another committee-style backfield like it was with Scat and Tracy, and it'll be like that with Scat and Devin Singletary? Devin Singletary couldn't overtake or get hardly any opportunity at all with Tyron Tracy last year.
And
Skattebo just beat out Tyron Tracy. it's Skattebo's backfield, and it's his alone. Devin Singletary will get some change of pace opportunities like every backup running back in the league gets. This is Skattebo's backfield, and it will be for the rest of the year. So I'm with you. I think he's a buy as well.
Again, rankings. Tony Pollard, moving for Skattebo. Jalen Warren, moving for Skattebo. DeAndre Swift, moving for Skattebo. Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt, moving for Skattebo. J.K. Dobbins, moving for Skattebo. I mean, if you want to move Chase Brown for Skattebo, go for it. I would be totally comfortable with that.
So another piece of news, by the way, Tyron Tracy going to be missing a decent amount of time with that injury that he left the game
so
with
I wondered why you weren't
so
saying that Tracy would be the change of pace back. So that's actually interesting. So
Tracy will be missing time because Singletary will be the backup now at this point with him being out.
And they're not going to give him anything. He's going to eat, dude. He is a hard buy.
Yeah, and another big piece of news that was just announced, I literally had to change our prep doc in the middle of this. CeeDee Lamb out 4 to 6 weeks with a high ankle sprain.
Holy smokes.
So we've got to talk about George Pickens here. Obviously, if you can afford it, you're 3-0 in your league, and you can get CeeDee Lamb at a discount, like for very, very, very cheap. Both of us would say buy. It's a conditional buy. You can't afford it if you're 0-3 right now, or going to be 1-3 over the next couple of weeks. But just keep an eye on that. George Pickens is who I really want to talk about. This is a massive dub for Sal, by the way, in the Flock League over the short term, next month to month and a half. But for Pickens, you obviously saw what he was able to do yesterday without CeeDee Lamb in that offense. Another 9-target day, 5 receptions. Holy crap, dude. 2 weeks in a row, 9 targets, 5 receptions, 68 yards, and a touchdown.
Exactly. That's freaking
17.8 points back to carbon copy weeks against the Giants in Chicago. So interestingly enough, in a matchup where CD was out for most of the game, and you would have expected him to get increased work or increased target volume, etc., in this offense, he really stayed about the same. And I know they were kind of cooked against Chicago, but again, part of that is because they didn't have CeeDee Lamb. I'm not going to lie, guys. We've seen George Pickens in a wide receiver 1 role in the past, and I understand it wasn't with Dak Prescott and it wasn't in a heavy passing offense like this, but schematically, George Pickens, and historically, he is not better off as a wide receiver 1 in an offense. Look, if you're going to get someone panic buying on George Pickens because A, they either own CeeDee Lamb, or B, they're panic buying because they think it's just going to be wheels up and he's going to do what CeeDee Lamb was able to do as the number 1 in that offense, this is not the ideal role that you actually want to see Pickens in. And I'm not saying that Pickens isn't going to produce at the same level that he has to start the season. I'm just saying I don't necessarily think that his upside is what you actually believe it could be. I'm not necessarily buying that just with what we've seen with the skill set that George Pickens offers in this offense. Honestly, this just makes Turpin and Tolbert a little more relevant because all that extra target volume is going to, in my opinion, be evenly distributed across the rest of the guys there, and this is just going to be a less explosive, less efficient, and less good offense while CeeDee Lamb is out.
I would say...
So I would go soft sell.
I would go hold soft sell as well. I think people are going to overreact to this. Yeah. I think people are going to say, well, Pickens is the wide receiver 1. This is what we've been waiting for. Guys, we've seen him as a wide receiver 1. He's not that good. He plays better in a complementary role. Him and CeeDee Lamb were a perfect pairing. It's why we were so high on George Pickens. We weren't high on, I mean, George Pickens, do keep in mind, this is still the best quarterback situation of George Pickens' career.
Yes.
And it will still be the best quarterback situation of him as a wide receiver 1.
We are not saying he won't produce.
He's going to produce, but he's also going to have games where he has 8 points.
Yep.
It's just what George Pickens does. And, while I think he could kill it, I think there's a possibility, because this is the best situation for him that we have seen as a wide receiver 1, that he does very well and that he does something we didn't expect. I'm going to say hold. I'm just going to say hold him.
I would watch where your league starts to rank this guy and where they actually price him, and I would pounce if it's too high. What would your breaking point be for George Pickens at this point? Because I got to move him up now.
Well, I mean,
a couple of spots.
I have him ranked pretty aggressively already, but he's next to guys like Jamison Williams, Marvin Harrison Jr., Ladd McConkey. I mean, I would probably say at this point, I would put him maybe a spot or 2 above there, but I'm going to keep him in the same tier I have him in. Mm-hmm. I mean, are you taking Tyreek Hill or George Pickens the rest of the season?
Tyreek.
You're taking Sutton at that point?
100%. I have Sutton at wide receiver.
Would you move Brian Thomas for George Pickens?
I would probably still rather have BTJ.
I would too. And so, at the same time, I can't really move him anywhere besides in a tier here.
Zay Flowers, Tet McMillan. I think I'd rather have both of those guys as well.
This is a hold for me. But if you can get up to, I think where I would start. But if I have Pickens, somebody's like, hey, I'll just give you Tyreek for him. I'm probably not going to be like, yeah, I'm definitely making that trade. If I can get up to the Garrett Wilson, Zay Flowers, Devontae Adams, Ted McMillan range, that's where it's like, it's not even a question for me. And I honestly don't think you get there. So I'm going to say hard. A is going to be a hold for me. I don't want to sell him because of the upside, but I'm not buying him. No way I'm buying him. All right, let's talk about Garrett Wilson now. Garrett Wilson, expert consensus rankings over on the side, is ranked the wide receiver 15. He's the wide receiver 6 so far in the season. He's averaging 18.6 points per game, and he has had 1 game with Tyrod Taylor and 2 games with Justin Fields. So I'm not quite sure what else we want to see out of Garrett Wilson. This is a guy who consistently has been a productive wide receiver in fantasy football.
Aside from the Quinshon pick, I got mostly annihilated for Garrett Wilson,
which is just. I mean, he already has 2 touchdowns this year, which is a very encouraging sign. He scored a touchdown against Tampa Bay and 24 points in this game, where Tyrod Taylor threw him the ball 13 times. He caught 10 of them for 84 yards and had a touchdown. And he's still, I mean, this guy's performing at a mid wide receiver 1 level so far throughout this season. With a very bad situation, honestly, in terms of quarterback play, but a much better situation in terms of head coaching. I think Aaron Glenn is actually a competent head coach there. I think the coaching staff is better for Garrett Wilson than it has been in the past. With Garrett Wilson, I'm going to label him as a soft buy. I think if you can go get Garrett Wilson for some of the guys he's ranked around, like maybe you're going and you're like, hey, between Ladd and Garrett Wilson, for me, it's like not even close. So if that's even still a discussion, you do it. But guys like Emeka Ibuka, Brian Thomas, Cortland Sutton, Tyreek Hill, Ladd McConkey, Marvin Harrison Jr., you can flip them for G-Dub. I would take G-Dub there pretty easily. Yeah. And it's tough because I have him ranked so high already. I have him ranked up there with AJ Brown, Rome Odunze, Ted McMillan, because
I'm right there with you.
Because I don't know why we wouldn't.
12.
I don't know why we wouldn't at this point. He was the wide receiver 10 last year. He just signed a huge extension, and he's the wide receiver 6 so far this year.
He's probably going to finish as a low-end wide receiver 1, high-end wide receiver 2.
Which is what he did last year.
Which is what he did
last year.
Yeah. And you're gonna have down games for sure. I mean, we just saw that in week 2. We had one already. But what did we have in that down game? We had 8 targets.
Exactly.
So which just raises his floor so much. And this is coming from a guy who took the shot on Marv, and I'm big time regretting it because in direct contrast to a guy like Marv, when you have a bad Marv game, you have a bad week losing Marv game.
Yeah.
And for Garrett Wilson, it's like if he disappoints, okay, it's about 10 points.
Yeah, I mean, that's fine.
It's not bad at all.
So I'm gonna say soft buy. I still think he's gonna be chronically undervalued by most of the fantasy football community just because he's playing on the Jets and just because he's playing with bad quarterbacks. But what we need to realize as a fantasy football community, and what you can realize and be a smarter fantasy football player, is Garrett Wilson is quarterback proof.
Yeah. We talked about 2 of my guys on the Flock League so far in this video. We need to talk about one of your guys at least. So let's talk about Michael Pittman, who, in my opinion, is, to your credit, looking like one of the better picks in fantasy football this year. 20 points against Miami, 8 against Denver, and then 19 against Tennessee. You're looking at a guy that, again, in terms of skill set, is he's gonna always get his own in terms of targets every single week. He's always gonna get like no less than 5 or 6 targets every game. Because he is just such a good, effective short to intermediate target that has great yak ability. And clearly, Daniel Jones is playing the best football that we've ever seen him play. And Michael Pittman has honestly been a big reason for that, because you're not asking Daniel Jones to do so much. He only takes a couple of deep shots downfield every game, like literally maybe 3 every game. And then the rest is going to Tyler Warren, Michael Pittman, and then a couple of short targets. They were even involving Alec Pierce in the second level of the field and Josh Downs in that range as well. So there's an obvious way in the way that they like to score points and win right now, Shane Steichen schematically, and Michael Pittman has been a huge part of that. And you're seeing his yak ability on display. What I'm really encouraged by is when he doesn't score a touchdown, again, very similar to Garrett Wilson, 2 touchdowns. He's in double digits comfortably with those 2 touchdown games. But then the game that he doesn't score a touchdown, he has 5 targets, 4 receptions, 40 yards, salvages a day with an 8-pointer against Denver when he's lined up against Surtain like the whole day. Yep. So the schedule outlook at this point for Rams, Vegas, Arizona, Chargers, Tennessee, Pittsburgh, it's a mixed bag. You got a tough matchup against the Rams, easy ones against Vegas and Arizona, quote unquote easy. Every matchup in the NFL is tough, but with it being a mixed bag in terms of outlook, I think you're going to see a little you're going to see some ebbs and flows with his production, realistically. But with his price right now, I do think it is worth kind of biting on. I would go soft buy for Michael Pittman. I've got him in the high-end wide receiver 3 range because I don't think he has the upside that a Devonta Smith or Ricky Pearsall or Jamison Williams has any given week. And he doesn't have the target volume consistency that a guy like Chris Olave has, which is why I have him a tier below those guys. But honestly, when you're looking at Michael Pittman versus DJ Moore, when you're looking at Michael Pittman versus Jacoby Myers versus Jalen Waddle versus Darnell Mooney, Khalil Shakir, like all these guys kind of in that same range, their floors, every single one of those guys that I mentioned that wasn't named Michael Pittman has shown a lower floor at this point. And what really is their upside realistically when most of those guys are number 2s in their respective offenses.
Yeah.
And Pittman schematically is the one in that offense. He is always on the field constantly. Him and Warren are always on the field. And there's a clear step down when you're talking about consistency for every other receiving asset in that offense.
I mean, last time you saw a healthy Pittman, he was the wide receiver 13 in fantasy.
He's playing with a broken back last year.
He literally was playing with a broken back last year. Wide receiver 12 so far. He is realistically in fantasy football a wide receiver 3 with wide receiver 2 upside being priced as a wide receiver 4. That's a buy. Pretty easily.
And in fairness, like I do want to note that like we were big Josh Downs advocates to an extent heading into this season because we thought his price was fine. But honestly, and we did admit that if we're wrong about Josh Downs, it's probably because we weren't high enough on Michael Pittman.
Well, and Warren
that's
also.
And Warren as well. Warren actually, you're right. Warren took
the utilization hasn't been the same for Downs. They've changed their offense a little bit, and so that's where I want to talk about one more player on this list. I have him on my team as well, but I do think he's worth talking about at this point. Is Quentin Johnston. QJ is a wide receiver 1 through 3 games and looks.
That's wild. He looks good.
Quentin Johnston looks good at football. Like this
looks like a Nico Collins jump.
It looks like the Quentin Johnston that we thought he could become when he came out of college, but we were always very skeptical because he dropped every pass that came his way. Well, he's stopped dropping passes and he's very involved in an offense that's throwing the ball a lot more than we expected.
The volume just went up like crazy, and the efficiency with that volume went up.
I was going to say he's become so efficient, and he looks like.
They're not like low percentage
like
passes.
On tape, watching him in the game looks good. Like looks like a good wide receiver. QJ is the wide receiver 7 through 3 games. And look, I know he's not a wide receiver 1 this year, obviously, but 18.57 points per game. I mean, the only guy even close when you're looking at the rankings with on Flock from wide receiver 20 down with points added here. There are 2 guys from rank 20 to 40 that are in the green, which is, I think, above 18 points per game. Those 2 guys are Keenan Allen and Quentin Johnston.
Yeah, that's pretty
It's crazy. The Chargers. We are being very, very slow to adjust for these Chargers wide receivers, when in reality, Allen should be moving up your rankings and Quentin Johnston.
Moving them up incrementally every single week.
I would say, I got QJ on waivers, and I think so far he's been the best waiver pickup.
At price, yeah.
Which
is crazy, because I thought it was bad waiver pickup.
I think I'm going to have to start starting QJ. Like, I think
didn't you infamously drop Bashal Tutin for QJ? Was that who you dropped?
Yes,
okay,
I did.
Because you wanted to cancel the move.
And I think rest of the season it ends up being Quentin Johnston.
Yeah.
I think QJ might be a soft buy at this point. Like, people are very, very slow to move him up rankings.
So over the next 4 weeks, your matchups are the Giants, Washington, Miami, and the Colts.
He's a buy. Okay, so I was saying he's a buy.
That matchup alone will merit a soft buy. I'm not going to go out here and say that QJ from here on out is going to score double digits every single week. I'm not going to bet on that because I do think Water is going to find its level with a guy like Ladd McConkey, who, again, with Ladd McConkey's price, there are guys that I prefer over Ladd McConkey. He's fallen down my rankings quite a bit, and I know Avery's as well. But for a 9.57 target start for Ladd with 13, 9, and 8 points and no touchdowns, where Keenan Allen and QJ are hauling in all the tuds right now, I do think you're going to have a good number of weeks this season realistically beyond a 3-week sample size at the beginning of the season where Ladd is going to be he's going to tell us again why he's the number 1 wide receiver there. But that being said, for the 4 weeks alone over the next few weeks, I think you're going to have multiple wide receivers continue to produce in that offense while they continue to pass the ball like crazy, I guess, and be efficient. And I think that merits him being a soft buy as well.
I mean, it's just funny. Just a real quick note. Ladd's not. It's not like Ladd's not involved. Ladd's getting all the middle of the field's usage, which is where he's good. He's very good at the sticks, middle of the field.
I mean, part of it, I think, is the element of surprise. No one thought that QJ and Keenan Allen were going to be like significant factors in that offense, and everybody's number 1 is on Ladd right now.
And defensively, Ladd also. So, I mean, realistically, he's playing a lot outside last season compared to what he's doing. He's being utilized more like a slot receiver this season, and QJ as a true X that looks really good.
I think part
It's
of
been
the
shocking to me.
Yeah, I mean,
can't believe it.
QJ's look solid. I think part of the reason is because they have to respect Ladd if he's going to play in the slot, and then that opens the field for Keenan and QJ.
And again,
So
QJ's not a wide receiver 1. He's not the wide receiver 7 in fantasy football. What is he? He's probably a wide receiver 3 or 4, and he's ranked as a low-end wide receiver 4 right now.
Yeah.
So I'm not saying buy him. Like you're like, oh, you're buying high on QJ. Nobody's moving QJ up their rankings. If you, again, here are the guys I would pay for QJ.
Is he really going to be that expensive if you go target him in fantasy? Probably not, and he's flexible.
Here are 3 guys that people will be like, whoa, really? Are you taking Addison or QJ rest of the season?
I have him in the same tier.
Are you taking Hunter or QJ rest of the season?
QJ by far. I have Hunter all the way down at wide receiver.
Golden or
51.
QJ? Golden or QJ?
QJ. I have Golden at wide receiver 49.
And I think most people would take those 3 receivers over QJ right now, and those are the moves you can make for QJ. Do us a huge favor. If you enjoy the content, make sure you drop a like and make sure you subscribe. Long video, but lots to talk about, honestly. I love these videos because we can just talk about the situational differences between all these wide receivers and when you get into the numbers, what you should actually be doing with them. So we appreciate it if you guys subscribe as well. We have this video every week with a bunch of other videos, but you guys are awesome. We appreciate you. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you later.